Everyone thinks raising chickens is easy money. Well, today I'm going to show you some real numbers, and at the end I think you'll see exactly why most small farm chicken operations fail. Let's get into it. Real quick, we have a newsletter, the Sunday Solopreneur. This comes out every Sunday about 10 a.m. I talk about how to market your products on your farm, how to use social media and websites to grow your farm. I also talk about farming, raising cattle, chickens, pigs. We go through it all, and it's about building your farm business. Sign up now, and you'll also get a free PDF on how to use ChatGPT to write your social media, to write your newsletters, and to help write product descriptions for your products. This is free download for signing up for the newsletter. One newsletter every 1 to 2 weeks, no spam, I promise. Check it out. I think you'll get a lot of value in learning to grow your farm or homestead, and it's free. All right, back to the video. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Jason, the part-time farmer, and today we're going to talk about, can you make money raising chickens? I did a video a few years back about when we were raising 200 birds, and at the time we were making a profit. Feed was less, labor was less, and a lot of factors were different at the time. That video was also based on 200 birds. Right now, today, you can see behind me, here's our chicken house back here. We're raising 100 birds, and I'm going to go into all the numbers, talk about how much we're spending, talk about how much we're making, and by the end, we'll know, is this profitable, and even talk about some scenarios why, and if you're raising chickens for eggs on your farm, maybe some things you can do to boost your profits. So first, let's set up the scenario here. We're raising 100 birds. These are red sex links, proficient egg layers. Out of about 100 birds, we tend to get about 80 eggs per day. Another way to say that is 0.8 eggs per bird per day. We're selling our eggs for $6 per dozen, and to be out in the rural country and based on what it's costing us and what our market will bear, that's where we've landed, is $6 a dozen. We're using non-GMO feed from Sunrise Feeds, and that's costing us $19.50 for a 50-pound bag. And these, I would say, are some of the main factors that go into whether you're profitable or not. Now, we're going to talk about labor, we're going to talk about maintenance, infrastructure. There's a lot of other things that go into it, but I wanted to get those main things out there just to give you an idea. This will help set the scene for where we're going with this. So egg production, first the good news. Out of 100 hens, we're getting about 80 eggs daily. That gives us roughly a little bit over 6.5 dozen eggs per day. And that is roughly about 200 dozen eggs per month. Now that sounds like a lot of eggs, right? But let's see what they're worth. So we said about 6.7 dozen eggs per day. At $6, that's roughly $40 per day that we could make if we're selling all the eggs. Now, if we multiply that times 30 days or a month, we're making roughly $1,200 per month. And then if we extrapolate that out further, looking at 12 months or a year, we're making about $14,400 per year. Definitely not quitting our day jobs, that's for sure. Now we're going to get into what I call the reality checks. These are the factors that are going to eat into that money that we're making. Feed is going to be our biggest expense here. Hens eat about 1/4 pound or 0.25 pounds of feed per hen per day. So at 100 hens, we're looking at about 25 pounds per day in feed. That's roughly 750 pounds per month, or 15 bags of feed we have to buy each month for 100 birds. We're paying about $19.50 per bag, so 15 bags is going to cost us about $293 per month in feed to feed 100 chickens. So this is a big point. We're spending about $300 a month just to feed these birds. And that takes into account that these are pasture-raised birds, so they're still eating, bugs, grass. They're having a natural diet of pasture, and then they have free-range feeders sitting that's available for whenever they want it. Reality check number 2, that's just one cost. There's lots of other costs. So some of those other costs include bedding for coops. Now, we have a system with holes in the floor so that the birds poop, but during the winter, we do put some cardboard down, put chips on top of that, so we are spending some on wood chips. So let's say for 100 birds, though, let's say roughly $60 per month. I think wood chips are running around $7 or $8 a bag right now. $60 a month in shavings. Egg cartons and labels, looking at about another $60 a month, and this can vary, and we'll talk about that towards the end on some things that can make this vary. But when you're doing 100 chickens and getting that many eggs, you may be able to get some free cartons from some people, and you're going to end up having to buy some cartons. And that can be a fairly big expense, especially if you're buying them at a small scale. Replacing dead birds. This is going to cut into the numbers. Again, you've paid money to get these chickens, and then that's also, when we've done this math, we figured it on 100 birds. Therefore, when we have a bird or 2 or 3 die, then the number of eggs starts shrinking. Again, our feed cost is going to get a little bit less, but also the revenue that's coming in is going to get less. So we account for about $50 a month to account for this. And I also include in this $50 a month not only dead birds, but cracked eggs. There's a certain number of eggs, for whatever reason, you won't use, whether they're cracked, oddly misshapen. There's just some eggs you won't sell, so you have to take that into account as well. Equipment repairs. We figure in around $40 or $50 a month for that. That could be to the shelter itself, that could be to the feeders, that could be if you're actually having to move, I have to move this with a tractor. So I have to factor the tractor into my cost. Fuel, maintenance on that. And again, it's hard because sometimes things break. A couple years you may have perfect years. So I'm trying to give conservative estimates here. If you do better than that, great, but we want to try to factor in for reality, not what looks great on paper. So we figure in about 40 to 50 bucks a month for just repairs. Supplements and grit. We give our chickens oyster shells because they're producing eggs. They're spending a lot of calcium. They need to have that replaced. So we use oyster shells for that. And then we also use grit, which works to help them break up their food. Then there's also things like we use some apple cider vinegar. So we account for all of these things, about $25 per month. And then lastly, utilities. This may or may not affect you. If you're on a well, then you're probably getting free water. If you're not, you're probably paying for it, but that's not a lot of water. But even if you're on a well, you need electricity to power that well. Also, during the winter time, there may be times you're adding supplemental heat, whether you're putting them in a greenhouse, whether you have them in an enclosed structure. So just utilities. If you're using your truck or tractor to move these shelters, again, you got to think about fuel. So for utilities, we factor in about $30 per month. So all in all, we're looking at somewhere around, I think the math comes to about $265, but $250, $265 a month that you'll be spending essentially just in maintenance of keeping up with all the things that you need to make this enterprise work. Now we need to talk about one of the main things a lot of people don't factor in at all, but it's one of your highest and main costs, and that's labor. Labor is kind of one of those hidden things that most of us farmers were doing it ourselves, so we don't really think about labor. But if you really think about it, if you were paying someone to do this job for you, what would you be doing with your time? You might be doing something fun, spending more time with your family, engaging in a hobby that you like. So labor is super important. You may also not be doing that, but you may be using that time to market your farm or actually bring in more money in another way that you can't do while you're doing eggs. So you have to factor in labor as a cost, even if you're doing it yourself, because that is your time and that time is valuable. Now earlier we said we were making about $1,200 a month. So once we minus all the other costs that we just had, our feed and the other cost, we are making about $600 a month. $609, I think, if I'm doing the math right. So that's $609 in profit after we factored in all the things we've just talked about. But again, we haven't addressed labor. You know, labor can vary depending on how you're moving your birds, how you're collecting your eggs, how far your eggs are from where you're at. There's a lot of factors that go into that. So I'm basically using our numbers. What we use, again, you'll have to kind of figure this out for your context. But our general routine would be about 45 minutes in the morning and about 30 minutes in the evening. And that's essentially, that's doing the chores, that's getting the feed from the barn, that's gathering the eggs. That is also, you have to take all those eggs, you have to wash them, you have to put them in cartons, you have to label those cartons. There's just a lot that goes along with rather than just collecting eggs. So we're roughly about an hour, a little bit over an hour per day. And then we also figured an extra 15 minutes per day. And it's not necessarily per day, but you're going to need to clean your structures at some point. Even with holes in our floor, we still have to clean. We have to go in there occasionally, shovel out. And then that's got to be moved somewhere, whether it's spread on pastures, you know, whatever you're doing with it. So we figured in roughly 15 minutes a day just goes towards that, keeping things tidy, maybe cleaning out the bowls. All in, we're about an hour and a half a day. So you figure an hour and a half a day. We're going to use $20 as a cost per hour for labor. And I don't even know that that's fair these days. If you go out and do other labor jobs like construction work, you know, helping with roofers and different things like that, you're probably making more like $25 an hour. But I'm going to go with about $20 an hour. So if we take an hour and a half per day times $20, you're looking at about $30 per day. You multiply this out for a month though, you're looking at about $900 a month in just labor. Now you're probably already starting to think, but we're only making now $600 in profit, but now I'm spending on top of that then $900 in labor. Yeah. We're running about negative $291 where we're at now. And that's kind of just to say that you're actually losing money when you pay yourself fairly. Now again, your numbers may vary a little bit. It might not take you that much time in a day. You might not feel your time is worth 20. You might think it's worth 15. I disagree with you, but there are factors for you that may change these numbers a bit, and you can run the numbers, substitute in some of your numbers and see what you get. But before we get too down on this and like, well, why the heck am I raising eggs then? There are some solutions to this. So let's talk about how do you fix this? How do you make money as a small farm? So making money as a small farm really comes down to one thing, and that's scaling. Not something everybody wants to hear, especially as a small farm. We want to not necessarily stay small, but just that's how it works in a family setting. If you get too big, you're no longer a small farm, you're having to bring in help, and things just become a whole different monster than what it is. But that's not to say that you can't scale from where you're at. If we were to do some real quick back of the napkin math, let's say we had 500 chickens up from our 100, then that would automatically scale our revenue up to about $6,000 per month. Now, that's still bird for bird. There's no really difference in scaling with just that part itself. Our feed cost would be a little bit over $1,500 per month. Our other costs would be just a little over $1,000, around $1,075 per month. But here's where a big factor comes in, is that a lot of times with scaling like this, your labor is going to go way down. Meaning it's not going to take you, I think we said when we were doing an hour and a half a day for 100 birds, it doesn't mean for every 100 birds that's going to add another hour and a half. It's not. We've done almost 300 birds before, and we could get that done with maybe an extra 20 minutes. But the fact that you're actually saving so much on labor now means when you look at the bottom line, you're making a lot more money. We figure that about 500 birds for 3 hours of labor a day, that's going to take us from where we were about $900 a month in labor up to $1,800 in labor. But we have went up 5 times on the amount of birds we have, meaning the amount of revenue coming in. That means now, instead of looking at a deficit of about $300 a month that we weren't paying ourselves, that we were actually losing, now we're looking at a profit of a little bit over $1,500 a month. Here's some of the magic of scaling up. 1, labor efficiency, which we just talked about. You don't need 5 times the amount of time for 5 times the amount of birds. We only doubled our amount of time, but went up 5 times on the amount of birds. Therefore, we're paying a lot less labor for a whole lot more birds, which equals more revenue. It's the same morning routine, you're just feeding more birds and you're getting more eggs. Your fixed costs can get spread out by a lot. Now, this would depend on the size of your coop and the infrastructure you're running, but for instance, what we're running back here, we're running 100 birds, but this thing will hold over 300 birds. So when you average that out on a bird per bird basis, we're not maxing out what we can do. Therefore, scaling up for us at least to 300 with these guys wouldn't cost us a thing different in infrastructure or fixed cost. It's really just to say that equipment costs don't necessarily double just because the birds double. And then there's also better deals. When we're paying $19.50 a bag right now, but at a scale of say 300 to 500, well, then we're buying totes, and so we're getting the feed per pound at a whole lot cheaper. And when you're talking tons of feed, that ends up being a lot of savings. So now, not only do we have more revenue coming in, we have less labor costs, but now we're also paying less for the feed. The other thing is packaging. I was talking about egg cartons. When you're at this scale, even at 100, you're buying egg cartons. I think we were paying about 48 cents per carton when we were buying them at around 400 per time. And we ended up bumping that up and got over 2,000 at a time. And these were being delivered on pallets. And that took our costs from 47 or 48 cents per carton down to 34 cents per carton. Therefore, we were saving over 10 cents on every carton that went out. You multiply that times a couple of thousand cartons, you're saving some money. So again, when you start getting scaled up, you start buying in bulk more. Again, it is more money up front, but on average, you're paying a whole lot less per bird, which is more money in your pocket. And then there's customer efficiency. Depending on who you're marketing to, you have to move all these eggs, obviously, to be able to sell them. But when you're in this scale, this starts prompting you to go to maybe bigger places, small health stores, gyms. You're already reaching out to other customers, so why not take some of that time and reach out to some bigger customers to get some bigger orders? Now that you have the supply for that, there's a lot of people out there that would prefer to have your eggs over store-bought eggs, especially in this day. Just recently, store egg prices have been absolutely ridiculous, and they're labeled with pasture raised and all these terms that likely do not apply to them, but that you're actually doing. And all that's just to say that just because you scale up doesn't mean that necessarily your marketing and what you're spending to do that, it needs to scale up. You may just need to change where you're spending some of your time marketing. So this brings us to a dilemma. You know, it's a brutal truth, but to me, I still feel like it's a truth, is that the 100 bird trap. You know, a lot of farms raise 100 birds. It's just it's a number that a lot of us start with for whatever reason. And honestly, 100 birds is too big to be considered a hobby farm. But looking at the numbers that we've just come up with, I think it's safe to say that it's too small a number to be profitable. You're doing real work for negative pay. And then there's even things that you have to do to enable success when you're doing 100 birds, which is sell every bit of eggs that you have. You have to sell them at a premium price that's non-negotiable. One disease outbreak or problem can wipe out months of profit. And then something I really didn't factor in here, and I should have earlier, is that during the winter, your egg production is actually going to drop from the numbers. You're likely, 100 birds, you're not going to be getting 80 a day. That's going to be less, and therefore that's actually going to skew your numbers even down a little bit further, because you're still going to be out there doing the labor. So that's all just to say that small scale is hard when it comes to eggs, and I'd even argue broilers, and I may do a separate video on that. So what should you do? I don't see a way of doing less than 100 birds and making that profitable. We've been doing this for about 10 years, and trust me, I've tried everything that we can, but when you're really factoring in everything, you have to acknowledge what the numbers are telling you. Now, I think 100 is great for getting started, getting your name out there, starting to build up a customer base. Eggs are one of those things, are kind of like a staple, like milk, that everybody buys them. And not that I want to be competitive with stores, but these days you can charge more of a premium price and still be competitive with the stores because of how inflated some of the store prices are right now. That's not to say you're inflated. That is your actual cost of doing what you're doing. Honestly, I should be charging more. But again, there's what you can there's what you need to charge to cover what you're doing, and then there's also what the market will bear. And typically your pricing is a combination of those two things, or should be a combination of those two things. But if you really want to profit, I would recommend starting out at around 300 to 500 birds. And again, that's a lot. And from starting from zero, you know, I never want to give people advice that's going to tell them to do something that's going to end up costing them a lot of money or getting them into trouble. But at the same time, I don't want to give someone hope that, oh, you can go out and do 100 birds and be successful, because that's going to be hard. I feel like my job as the part-time farmer is sharing what we've done and what we've learned on this farm, and what has worked and what hasn't worked. And this is one thing that we are just coming more and more to realize, is that it takes scale for these birds to be profitable. So if you want to profit, again, start with about 300 to 500 birds. I would recommend lining up customers first. That means doing a lot of marketing up front. Have some money saved up. You're going to go probably a little bit into debt. You know, all of farming is pretty much, you're buying cattle, you're buying chickens, you're raising them, you're feeding them, you're processing them before you ever see a dime. And this is no different. You're going to have to build those customers up first. You're going to have to do that marketing and get this stuff into place. So have some money saved up to help you get through that period. And then focus on premium markets. That's the other place. If you're rural, focus on your local cities that are big. Focus on your, you know, even if they're an hour or so away, you can make that work. But focus on the place where people are going to pay you the price that you want. And then be realistic about your goals. Again, we as farmers sometimes try to make things work. You know, it's easy to tell ourselves that I'm doing the labor, therefore I don't need to charge for labor. But again, if you do that, you're not getting an accurate picture of what that enterprise is either bringing in or not bringing in. Not only that, but you may realize, again, like we're realizing with 100 chickens, that we could get rid of that enterprise, have an hour and a half a day to focus on something else like cattle, pork, starting that garden we haven't started, that may be way more profitable. So knowing your numbers is really, you may realize that something's not working, but it's going to also help point you in the direction to things that are working. All right, so your turn. You guys, let me know, what do you think about this? Are you raising chickens? If so, how many are you raising? Do you feel like you're making a profit? Are your chickens making you money? What's the biggest challenges that you're facing raising chickens right now? Again, trying to keep it real here for you, and what's working for us and what's not working for us. And in my opinion right now, 100 birds is not working for us. But I'd love to hear what you have to say about that as well. All right, stay tuned. Next week, we're going to talk about something that is working for us, and that's horse boarding. We're going to talk about a service-based business that we've added in addition to the product-based stuff that we do with beef, pork, chicken, eggs, and maybe even get into a few numbers on that. If you got a barn, if you're into horses, anything like that, maybe something you can consider. And even if you don't, just hearing about one service-based business may make you realize that, oh, there's some service things I can do on my farm. Farm tours, workshops, processing classes. There's a lot of things you can do that don't actually require a product. They just require your knowledge and your time. So stay tuned for that. Leave comments below, and we'll catch you in the next one. All right, bye.